Watch this. See that? That is the difference between a tool and a toy. Over the past week, pretty much every watch tuber on the planet has posted a video about the new 2026 Speedmaster with the reverse panda dial. Most are very excited. But from my perspective as an airline pilot, it's a release where Omega stopped building for the mission and started building for the market. This is fashion over function. Welcome to Pilot Watch Gouge. Just honest intel for pilots and watch nerds alike. The one thing a tool watch can't negotiate with is legibility, because premium is not a feature in the cockpit. Looks expensive is not a complication, and visual interest doesn't help you when you're trying to read the time with a glance while you're also flying an airplane. The new 2026 Speedmaster is a case study in how a watch can get better finished, more expensive, and at the same time become objectively worse at being a watch. Here's the move Omega made.
Shiny.
The reverse panda layout, shiny black main dial, shiny white subdials, polished rhodium-plated hands. It's handsome. It photographs like $1 million, but it changes the way your brain reads the watch. Because now the dial isn't a simple time-first instrument, it's a high-contrast collage. There's a reason why this sort of dial is associated with racing. This is why this watch reads with so much Lamont-Paddock energy. Omega didn't just flip colors. They built the sandwich dial as two lacquered plates, ultra-glossy black up top, glossy white underneath where the subdials are cut out, surrounded by more shiny rhodium plating. That means depth, sheen, and a ton of highlights. There are over 20 layers of lacquer involved, and in a boutique, that looks like quality. In a cockpit, it looks like competition, because those white subdials aren't just subdials anymore. They're attention magnets. Your eye gets pulled into them even when you're not timing anything, which is why this dial format fits racing chronographs. The chrono registers become the star of the show. That makes sense when your mission is time the lap. But pilots optimize for something else, time to comprehension. Do me a favor, look at the watch on your wrist right now. Don't stare at it, just glance. Did you get the exact minute immediately, or did you have to hunt for it? On the flight deck, the best dial is the one your brain finishes reading before you're aware you looked at it. The watch that disappears until you need it, and then delivers the answer instantly. This dial doesn't disappear, it performs.
Razzle dazzle!
Now let's stack the second problem on top of the first. In the high UV glare on the flight deck, shiny surfaces are the enemy. Omega didn't stop at the reverse panda. They went full award season, lighting, wardrobe, and a press tour. You've got an ultra-gloss lacquer dial plus those shiny subdial frames, a black ceramic bezel with white enamel, and brilliant rhodium-plated hands that reviewers describe as diamond polished. All of that reads as luxury, but to me, all of that means reflections. In the cockpit, you don't get museum lighting. You get harsh sun through a windscreen, weird reflections off random surfaces, and that lovely moment where one tiny wrist tilt turns your dial into a mirror. Matte black aluminum bezels exist for a reason. They disappear. They don't demand attention. They don't sparkle. They just frame information and shut up. Ceramic with enamel is gorgeous. Absolutely. It is also more risk to legibility per square millimeter than the old school setup. So here's the punchline. In a boutique, reflection looks expensive. In a cockpit, reflection makes a watch less useful. So yes, this Speedmaster is upgraded. It's modernized. It's shinier. It clears 10 grand at retail. But if your watch is tool first, this is the part where we say it out loud. More premium does not mean more capable. Then, the Speedmaster mattered because it solved real pilot problems. High contrast, low reflectivity, instant readability. Those weren't aesthetic choices. They were engineering constraints. Matte dials because glare kills legibility. Aluminum bezels because shiny surfaces are distractions. You could read it, process it, and move on without thinking. That's how tools are designed. If you appreciate that kind of function-first analysis, and you're tired of reviews that just read the spec sheet, consider subscribing. I'll dig past the marketing fluff in every single briefing. Now, Before anyone says it, I'm not a Speedmaster purist. I actually prefer the sapphire sandwich over the old-school Hesselite. So this isn't an allergy to innovation. But look at the trade-off. Glossy lacquer dial, ceramic bezel, polished logo and indexes, more shine, more contrast, more visual noise. It looks incredible until you try to tell the time. This isn't progress, it's a mission change. There's nothing wrong with this watch as a racing chronograph. Call it the black and white Speedy, call it the Shine Master, call it the Le Mans, maybe the Le Moons, maybe the Speedy Tona. But pilots didn't ask for a racing watch. And that's the tipping point. The Speedmaster didn't become iconic because it was beautiful. It is beautiful because it works. Same name, same movement, very different priorities. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. A buddy pointed out that this is like the official watch of the K-shaped economy, up and to the right, as long as you're already in the right bracket. And I'm curious if you agree with him. I think the math backs him up. This release jumped the retail price of a steel Speedmaster 11.6% in just 18 months. That shiny dial didn't just add reflections, it added a tax. And this isn't just an Omega problem. This is an industry-wide roadmap. We need to be honest about what's happening here. When brands chase premium, they are actively abandoning the features that made the watch trustworthy in the first place. Let me know in the comments. At what price point does a tool watch stop being a tool for you? Is it $5,000? $10,000? Here is the fundamental disconnect. Tool watches should be optimized for use. Luxury watches are now optimized for perception. The problem is when brands pretend those are the same thing. As a pilot who loves this heritage, this is my frustration. I watch these instruments, pieces of kit I respect for their utility, continually slide up market. They get polished, plated, and priced until they become just jewelry based on a true story. And eventually they become unattainable for the very people whose association made them coveted in the first place. When a tool watch becomes too expensive to risk scratching in a cockpit, it stops being a tool. It becomes a prop. Here's my take. This probably isn't your first Speedmaster, but maybe it is your third. It's a collector piece. Something you add after you already own the baseline version that actually does the job. Maybe the one you pick up on your way to scoring a Snoopy. And I'm not alone in that assessment. I polled professional pilots, and the results were telling. 30% fewer were willing to spring for this model than the standard Speedy. At the same time, the market positioning is pretty clear. This watch isn't targeting pilots. It's hunting for the customer, tired of playing allocation games at the Rolex dealer, hoping to land a Daytona. So here's the bottom line. If you're buying a Speedmaster as a piece of jewelry, the reference 004 makes sense. If you're buying it as a tool, it's a step backward. Same movement, same name, different priorities. Not every upgrade improves the mission. Sometimes it just changes the target. If you want to see a chronograph that was made for pilots, without the jewelry markup, I dive into the watch I wear to work right here. Catch you in the next brief.